So I'm Kim Tula, and I have a little over 30 years experience working with people with Prader-Willi syndrome. And getting back on track, I think, is an important topic, especially now with the pandemic and everything else going on. So on the next slide, I have a quote that kind of goes over, sometimes we need to take a step backwards to find a new path forward. And I think it's important for people to remember this, especially when working with our loved ones who have Prader-Willi syndrome and have numerous needs. We do tend to get off track, and sometimes that's an opportunity to move forward in a different direction. The next slide kind of goes over, nobody is perfect. Everybody gets off track at some point, whether it's due to being tired, due to a situation, a circumstance, changes in the environment that you couldn't help. It happens to everybody, and it's really important to acknowledge that and forgive yourself. And it's also important, if your child's at an age that they can understand, to apologize for maybe not being consistent or following the plan that was in place. With that, once you acknowledge, forgive yourself, realize everybody does it, it's a normal thing, it's time to move forward. And that's our goal all the way. Keep moving forward. So on the next slide, part of moving forward is we need to take a look at what is working and what's not working. So some things that we can look at are things in the environment impacting what's going on, making it more challenging to follow the routine, the structure, and meet the schedule that needs to be kept. Look at the schedule itself and the routine. Is it too tight? Is it too packed? Do you need to move things around a little bit, make it easier for tasks to get completed? Maybe having your son or daughter take their shower after dinner is throwing off bedtime and the evening routine. Is it possible to move that shower time to before dinner? They may be more likely to take a shorter shower, knowing that dinner's coming out on the table. Another big one to look at is food security. What is the food security in the environment? Has something changed? Has the individual gained access to the food somehow? Is the security you have in place enough for the individual? I've worked with individuals who responded well to having alarms along with the supervision, and then also individuals who, if the kitchen wasn't locked up tight as a drum with locks and keys, and they were able to get in and their anxiety became driven, resulting in behaviors. Once you look at all those things, the environment, the routine and schedule, and the food security, take a look at what you can change and what you can't. Maybe some things you can't change. If you've got 3 kids getting out the door to school or eating breakfast at the same time to do homeschooling, maybe it's not possible to change the environment so that they're eating at different times, or that there's not going to be some kind of competition anxiety related to siblings having something different. Maybe the schedule is too tight, you can't change that, but if you can, now's the time to take a look at how can we change, what can we change, and look at what was working at one point. If it wasn't working great, it might be time to take a change. On the next slide, we've looked at all of those things. We have come up with a plan. We've acknowledged we've gotten off track and need to get back on track. We're ready to address the issues. It's time to have the talk. And having the talk means having the talk with the individual with Prader-Willi syndrome. So first off, it's important to review with the individual the expectations and the rules, but that you realize you've been off track or there's been some inconsistencies. And this could be inconsistencies with just you, or it could be inconsistencies between staff, inconsistencies between husband and wife, whichever it is. Acknowledge those, let them know that you know that that has happened. It's not harmful to apologize. I have found in my experience that saying, hey, I messed up and I'm really sorry. I wasn't doing the best I could to meet your needs. So what can we do? How can I help you? And let them be a part of that planning if they're capable. If they're not capable, obviously you would need to adjust that approach a little bit. So once you review that, explain that you got off track, you need to keep them safe. And the main key that you want to drive home is that this is to help them and to keep them safe. Kind of letting it see that it is all about them. Then you want to develop a plan. And I always find it very helpful to develop the plan with the individual. Now you can have your groundwork behind you. You know that you're going to structure the schedule, you know, a certain way. You're going to have certain activities or certain chores, whatever it may be laid out. But when I say plan it with the individual, plan things like, well, would you rather shower in the morning before breakfast or in the evening before dinner? If that's something you're willing to negotiate with. Help them, let them be a part of creating it. You also want to let them help and develop the plan for any kind of rewards. That positive reward system is really important. So if you're going to tie in some kind of reinforcement, you want to make sure that you are talking with them about what is rewarding, because what you think may be rewarding to them may actually not be. So get their input, develop a plan with them, use schedules, use cue cards, things like that to help explain that plan. Once you have that, again, you're going to review it with them. You're going to let them know very clearly what the new expectations or rules are going to be and why. Why are those going to be in place? And also reassure them you're going to do your best to make sure everything stays consistent. On the next slide, just really want to drive home, you know, developing that plan with them. And when you're doing this, you may be off track on 5 or 6 different areas, but you want to get back on track one thing at a time rather than trying to change everything at once. If you try to change everything at once, you're in for the battle of your life. But if you pick one thing and you work on that, get that routine going, get that change going, get the consistency going in that area, addressing that particular issue, that particular behavior, and then you can move on to address others as time goes. If you rip the carpet out from underneath them and throw in a new rug, it's gonna be crazy, for lack of better terms. And it's gonna be a lot to deal with. Whereas if you just address one issue at a time, one change at a time, expressing that it's for their best interest and to help them, things tend to go much smoother. So remember, success is the sum of all small efforts repeated day in and day out. So one thing at a time. And that's pretty much what we have. So if there's questions.